thing, and they're, so I've just been more restless, and but I would say starting Red Bay Coffee as a coffee company, it's a lot more than being a photojournalist or making art or even operating a single cafe.
Yeah.
This undertaking has consumed all of me. It has taken everything for sure that all of my life's experiences, and has tested me to the fullest. And I am no way bored. I am fully engaged and challenged. And it's taken all of the lessons I've learned, and a lot of lessons that I've yet to learn. And it's got me full up right now.
Well, you often acknowledge that this kind of third wave of coffee culture and the way that a lot of consumers experience it through cafes in the United States, especially in these major metropolitan centers, is often very white in terms of like who owns it, who owns different cafes, the aesthetic of spaces, the kind of assumed customers that they have. Was there an aha moment as, when you own Gorilla and Chasing Lions cafes, you were one of the few kind of like really well-known Black cafe owners in the Bay Area. And I'm just wondering, was there an aha moment where you're like, look, I want to pivot and actually start, selling coffee in a bigger way instead of just cups to customers?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call it an aha moment, but I do remember being, at being a Guerrilla Cafe. So folks who aren't aware, I started Guerrilla Cafe along with my wife, Raquel, and our business partner, Andrea Ali. Back in 2005, laid the groundwork. We opened the doors in 2006. And that was a little 22-seat coffee shop in North Berkeley. And that was
a little greasy spoon before you took it over, right?
Yeah, before we took it over, it was called Smokey Joe's Cafe, and it was a greasy spoon, but it was also the first or the oldest vegetarian cafe in the Bay Area. It had been established in 1977 or something like that, and it ran over 30 years.
Nice.
And it had seen better days by the time we took it over, but we started that spot, and North Berkeley, if you haven't been there, it's almost a retirement community. It's just like a old sleepy neighborhood, older, white, wealthy, and we took over this. Joe's the founder of Smokey Joe's invited us to take it over when he was ready to tap out of the business. So anyway, we got in there. We didn't know anything about running a business, or brick and mortar business anyway. Not one of three of us had any experience running hospitality. I mean, it's a miracle that place survived and is still thriving to this day.
Right.
I mean, it's a miracle. We had a pretty good deal on our rent, so we had a cheap rent. I think that was really what saved us. But we were serving blue bottle coffee. We were the first cafe to serve blue bottle coffee outside of their farmers market, even before they had their own coffee shop.
Yeah. And for folks who might be, in other parts of the country, can you quickly just tell them what blue bottle coffee is?
Yeah. So I talked about the third wave, right? So blue bottle coffee was sort of was really one of the leaders of the third wave of specialty coffee. And they made coffee about the origin, about roasting it lightly, about latte art, and they really distinguished themselves and helped elevate the coffee industry.
But and one thing I think should be noted that a lot of people don't, well, if you dig into the history, you might know this, but on the outside, Blue Bottle is one of those kind of companies that I think in many ways embodies this kind of like, that's this kind of elitist white coffee culture that
Definitely.
America has. But a lot of people might not know that they actually got the idea from Japan to start doing the slow drips, right? Is that right?
Well, I don't know. That's a good one. I gotta look into that. But I do know that that the founder, James Freeman, is is very much a fan of Japanese culture and lifestyle, and has probably 10 cafes today in Japan, Osaka, wow, Tokyo, and other regions. So if he did, he for sure returned it back and brought it back there. And for him, it's really all about the coffee. And he'll make that clear. It's really about the coffee. And for me, it was we're in this competitive space in the Bay Area where you just can't even get into the conversation unless your coffee is on some next level stuff. So we had to make sure the coffee was on point, but for me that wasn't enough. One, it wasn't enough for me just have delicious, great coffee. And for two, I knew just as a business strategy, that would only take you so far, because although at the time they launched, there wasn't a lot of great coffee. But as they started to become successful, I knew it was just a matter of time before other people started sourcing good coffee, roasting it like they give a damn, and brewing it with some expertise. And it's not rocket science. So, the other part of that is branding and purpose. And so I knew that's kind of where I went early in that conversation. So back at Guerrilla Cafe days, we for sure brought the flavor and brought the culture and made specialty coffee in a very lively environment. With art exhibitions changing out every 30 to 40 days, painting all the walls, doing, craft waffles and grilled sandwiches and poached eggs and yellow grits. And but I was always one restless, and I wanted to grow, expand the business, and I was always a little restless, just kind of being in that one shop. And my partners there, weren't so eager to expand until we had this thing dialed in, and I knew we'd never have it 100% dialed in, and you just had to go for it. So, finally I grew another cafe, and then within a year, that sort of bought me the space, so to speak, to start laying the groundwork to start roasting my own coffee and become a coffee company.
Can you tell us where you are, and we'd love to get a little tour. I don't know if a lot of people have been, people have gone to cafes. The beautiful thing is that where you are is kind of a hybrid of a cafe and some other things. So you want to tell us about what's going on over there?
Yeah. So Red Bay Coffee is it is this location here. It's a factory. First and foremost, it's a factory where we roast coffee. So I'll give you a little perspective. So, here is our roasting. Here's the Africa wall. And this space is used for events. During the daytime, people used to hang out here, and we would serve, so we have a very large space where people could just hang, kind of a co-work during the day. We're out here in the Fruitvale neighborhood. Before I go deeper into the building, I'll just sort of bring you outside a bit and give you a little context. So out this way is East Oakland, where the Warriors used to perform. The Oakland Airport is right down that way. Oh man, what perfect timing. So San Francisco is right down this way, and who comes down the sidewalk? It comes down from the lake right now is the Red Bay mobile coffee machine. Coffee van.
Oh.
Perfect timing. They're rolling up from service at the lake. And, so they've been at the lake all day serving coffee
Nice.
to the masses. We have a little garden. We have a little garden out here. Aquaponic garden with the fish tank. And anyway, so here's the building from the outside. Red Bay Coffee Roastery and Bar.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where we've been doing curbside service. We just closed, so the door is down. Since we're not serving inside now, our COVID protocols. And this is my man Grayson.
Grayson.
Red Bay Grayson. He's a popular dude on Instagram. Red Bay Grayson. You can check him out. So this is where the magic happens. This is a vintage coffee roasting machine. It's a roaster. The brand is called Probat. This is refurbished, but it's from 1966, and that's kind of where we roast all the coffee. Fridays are usually a light on the roasting days, but this is our coffee bar here. Normally, in the normal times, you would just kind of walk up and order your drink here. Beautiful San Remo espresso machine.
How much those San Remo's going for? About 10,000?
No, they're not going for 10,000. Maybe you get a used one at a discount or something, but no, them joints. Anyway, they're more than that. But
Wow.
Yeah. So this is the work of the production team. They've been bagging up, all this coffee all day. This our limited release, Brazilian Cake Lady, Slow Burn Espresso, East 14th, which is just right up the way from here. It's a nice little story about that. Coltrane. We got King's Prize, that's our Ethiopian coffee. Ocho Libre, that's our decaf, that's also from Colombia. And more of that limited release. So we got to stack it up because it's going to be a busy weekend at the lake.
Somebody said they love their monthly subscription of Red Bay Coffee.
Well, we love y'all for getting a monthly subscription. That's what's keeping us alive. I appreciate that. I was gonna give you a little tour of the lab here. This is where the quality control is done, the research and development. This is our little roaster here. So you can see this little joint here. This is basically a replica, a miniature replica of the big machine out there that I just showed you.
Yeah.
And this is what we roast small samples for. But this is how we develop the coffees. And we're able to take temperatures here. It's a data bridge, plug it into a computer, and then that's how we basically develop the coffees and translate them on the big machines. But so cupping happens here. Cuppings are basically tasting coffee to evaluate it. If anyone has never seen what coffee looks like before it's brown and roasted like that, it looks like this. We call it green coffee, but sometimes it's a little grayish or a little bluish, and we get samples like so from around the world all the time. Sometimes we ask for it, sometimes they just unsolicited and bring it to us. And we have to roast those up. So it starts like this. We roast it like this. We'll cup it, we'll taste it, evaluate it, and see if we're gonna purchase it or not. When we do purchase, then we go on and evaluate it. And can you see this okay?
Yeah.
So this is a flavor wheel. And this helps us with common language on how to describe coffee. So these are some of the major kind of categories, and then there's a lot of subcategories. So, we may say this coffee, has a floral note. But if you want it to be more specific, there's hibiscus, rose hips, lavender, magnolia, jasmine, orange, blossom, lemongrass, right? If you're like, all right, well, it has a little chocolatey, and like, all right, we'll expand on that. Cocoa nibs, dark chocolate, baker's chocolate, bittersweet chocolate, cocoa powder, chocolate milk, so on and on. But anyway, this is some of the language is based there.
Okay, but let me ask you a question. I know that you do a lot of things. Your staff does a lot by hand. Packing the bags by hand, sometimes stamping.
Hard,
about,
and
as opposed to like automating.
We've grown from some there. So my man over here is cleaning the machine right now. So we've automated some of those since you've been here last, B.
Oh, okay.
Thankfully, we're doing less by hand than we used to. But this machine here is called the hopper, right? It's the same thing that's on top of the roaster. It's the same thing that's on top of the grinders inside the cafe. Hopper is just sort of the container at the top that releases coffee into the machine. And this is called a weigh and fill machine. So basically we set it, we dial it down, but it takes a lot of maintenance and cleaning every day. That's just even before COVID, but now we're taking a lot of extra measures. But yeah, so that's where we measure it. You dial in 12 ounces. And then and you fill the bags. After the bag is filled, now we use this machine. This is a sealer. So that seals the bag and then hits this conveyor belt. It goes up here. And then this here is basically a turntable. They might call it something else, but basically it's a turntable. It's a turntable. Yeah, we definitely call it a turntable, I'm told. That's right. Accumulating table.
Okay.
But we'll call it a turntable. Here's another wave fill machine, another sealer machine, and then between break. Here's our break room. We got a little bit of art here. So this piece here is a photograph by a photographer from Oakland, a sister, and damn it, I forgot her name, but anyway, she bad. So it's here, but that's my own personal piece. I bought that with my money, so that's gonna go home with me one of these days. Here's a couple, pieces of my artwork, as you can see.
Yeah. So, Keba, I want to, speaking of art, I do want to, I guess going back to Guerrilla Cafe, one of the things that I felt like really set it apart and made it special was your celebration of far left and radical politics, Bay Area icons, Black history, Black heroes and heroines. And then, we see this same attention to detail, beauty, design with Red Bay, and also, thinking about the way that you name some of the different coffees. Can you tell us more about your vision of kind of sharing just the cultures that are important to you through your coffee and your other projects?
Yeah. So again, I think that's an example of how I didn't sort of leave behind artist career to start a business. First of all, please be mindful that the arts is a business. Artists are entrepreneurs, and so my previous art practice is something that is something that stays with me. So my art practice, and I mean it's a business, but it's also a way of life, and it's a way of seeing the world. And once you sort of tune in to start tune in your eyes and your brain to start seeing the world in a creative lens, it's not something that you could just turn off one day, right? So you know what I mean? Like, I really enjoy wordplay. You know, I'm not necessarily a writer per se, but I do like wordplay and playing with language and coming up with names for the coffees. You know, like Brazilian Cake Lady or Carver's Dream. So Carver's Dream, these are the names of the coffee. So Carver's Dream is actually named after George Washington Carver, who is an American hero, as an agricultural savant, and you know, mixed sort of science and almost mysticism. You know, maybe less known, but and and he had a quote that was that went something like this: "If you love something enough, it will reveal its secrets to you." And I built an altar to that man in the very first, you know, little lab that I had in my basement, and built an altar to George Washington Carver.
The dojo.
I called that room the Coffee Dojo, and because that was a place where I would come together to train, to share my skills, to you know, to just learn and study the way of coffee. The way is what the dojo is about. But yeah, so you know, really building the spaces, like this. You know, it's about design. It's about wood. All this black wood surrounding the Africa is all burnt, charred with a big torch. You know, we did that out in the middle of the street. So it's also about process. It's not just the finished product and what it looks like, but it's the doing. It's about the process, and I just really enjoy all of that. And I'm a very tactile, hands-on person. I'm tactical also, but I'm tactile. And you know, but kind of bouncing back to a previous question that you asked, which was about, you know, specialty coffee spaces and blackness, and really there was, you know, at the time that we got started, there were no major coffee brands. Well, there still are not any major coffee brands that just unapologetically appeal to the Black aesthetic, to the Black culture, to Black folks.
Yeah.
And the irony is, coffee comes from Africa. It absolutely comes from specifically Ethiopia. They know exactly where coffee started from, and it's not from Yemen. All praise due to my folks from Yemen. It's not from Italy, but you know, credit where credit is due. They figured out the technology to create espresso, concentrated coffee, and mixed it with milk. Well, we started doing milk too in Ethiopia, but it wasn't from Seattle, right? So you know, Seattle. You know, I'll give credit to where credit is due. Howard Schultz and the Starbucks team, they for sure elevated coffee, introduced it to the world, got people understanding, talking about lattes, and you know, so each of these were building blocks. But you know, it's just important to know that the building block started right here, specifically right over here, and I'm all backwards. Yeah, that's right.
You right it.
And so, you know, so that's why we wanted to create a space like Red Bay Coffee that can, you know, that has become the premier Black-owned coffee company in North America, and we built our brand around slogans like "Beautiful coffee to the people," or or coffee, Africa's gift to the world. And so those are some of the messages that we tried to get out and promote, and folks have responded to it. Not just Black folks, but everybody.
Yeah.
Really, I think everybody, and as you know, Black culture drives the popular culture, and so that's what we're doing. We're just trying to drive the next generation of coffee culture.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, I really, I was talking to my wife about this last night. One of the things that I feel like you're such a powerful leader in is mentoring, training younger people. I know that you make a very concerted effort to work with people who've been formerly incarcerated. You definitely are very intentional about hiring people of differing abilities. I'd love to hear more about just your approach to, building teams and, really implementing and not just talking about diversity and inclusion, but, creating a work culture that celebrates people of various talents, abilities, and all that.
Yeah. Well, that really started, really at Guerrilla Cafe. That started there when we had this young international crew, Cubans and Moroccans and, African Americans and just people from all over the world, from Egypt, from Palestine, and that's just something that has just always been a part of my culture, the way my family moved. I grew up in San Francisco in the 60s, 70s, 80s, which is a very cosmopolitan city, and it's got problems too, and especially now it's sort of a hollow shell of culturally of what it used to be, kind of growing up in that city. But I think at Red Bay Coffee, though, we got started early on to be very intentional. It wasn't just that we were hiring, people of color, but I would say that, really how that started to become more institutionalized is at Red Bay Coffee, employee number one was my man, Corey Chin. And Corey Chin comes from an activist family. He'd done a lot of activism in his life, and that was really that history and that experience is probably what opened the door to Red Bay Coffee for him. And actually, he was at Chasing Lions. He was my manager at Chasing Lions Cafe at first. And but he had been doing a lot of work with the formerly incarcerated, and so he really formalized our
niggas is on prescriptions, paying for porn subscriptions.
After hiring,
but they act like they got bitches.
So
even worse is that they hate me.
And so we were very intentional about the work community and the people that we were hiring and giving jobs to, because if we're going to celebrate Africa and celebrate Black and brown farmers from around the world, really, I thought we had to put our money and our action where our mouth is, and put those people to work. Now, the challenge is that because the industry had been so whitewashed, it was really hard to find Black coffee professionals because they didn't have that experience. So very often what we had to do is hire people who had related experience, either in the cocoa and chocolate development, or bartenders and wine aficionados who had developed palates, and and even chefs. So we hired folks in wheelchairs and other folks who had unnecessary barriers to entry into this industry. We at our peak, probably 65% of our leadership, managers, directors, and C-suite are or were women. I say were. That's another story. But basically, we're in the COVID economic crunch right now, and Red Bay Coffee has undergone some changes. So we're still kind of finding our feet and reassembling our team and rearranging, who's here and what the company will look like going forward. But so that's a little bit of the highlight and kind of where we've been and how we got here.
Well, when you talk about, expanding and the kind of national platform, can you talk about at least pre-COVID, who knows where things will fall in the next couple of months, but what have been the kind of growth outside of the Bay Area and what plans do you have for further expansion given, continued access to capital and support and all that?
Right. So we started literally in my garage that opened out, that we called the Coffee Dojo, and that opened out into my backyard garden. So I just couldn't imagine a better, more fertile location to get started, right? And from there, we got this warehouse. And then from here, we opened our first cafe in a shipping container, converted shipping container in Uptown.
Wait, but I feel like you should at least tell them about the fried chicken spot and how that was a part of the early story.
Yes, that's right. So when basically when we were still in the dojo, right, and in my garage, we had the little machine that I showed you in the lab, and once we found the coffees, developed the profile, we had a couple customers, Chasing Lions and Gorilla Cafe, my own 2 cafes. Then at that point, man, it's a nice shot. I'm gonna screenshot that real quick. At that point, now we needed to go into production. So to do that, we found a little spot up in East Oakland on MacArthur in the Laurel District, and it was the Louisiana Fried Chicken and Donuts.
Jason Harvey knows about that. Jason Harvey's on here. He remembers that spot.
Okay. And so then what we found was a machine just like that one, but half the size of the one we have now. And it was just in the window collecting dust. I walked in, talked to the owner, I was like, yo, man, let me get up on this machine. And anyway, long story short, it took about a year. But after about a year, we got access and we started roasting coffee there. But we couldn't do it during the day. They didn't have a permit. And the owner was a character. And so we basically had to show up there at like 11 o'clock at night with Solomon, who's our lead roaster now, and him and one other person. They would roast all night until 6 in the morning.
Wow.
And then they would be roasting and packing and roasting and packing. They'd come back, drop off the stuff, and we would distribute out. And, so that was the humble beginnings. And just to sort of, accelerate the timeline. So we started roasting there, delivering to clients. We had our first 2 restaurant customers were Farmer Brown's and Kingston 11. Trying to remember who was first. It might have been Kingston, but they both came on. And then other restaurants and other cafes, and then some offices, and then we got our first big tech account, which is Uber, because Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf was a fan of Red Bay Coffee and our workforce practices, and so she was a champion for Red Bay Coffee anytime she got a chance. This was when Uber was trying to move into Oakland offices. And anyway, so they put us all in San Francisco, and we leveraged that relationship to start opening up in other spots. So we opened more cafes of our own. We started getting more accounts. Then we started getting some more tech accounts, Airbnb, Facebook. 2019, We basically served coffee to the entire Facebook account. That was,
Wow.
for sure our biggest account. 14,000 people drinking coffee every day. That was a 1-year contract. So, and man, and they rotate every year. Last year was our year. Someone else got it this year. And I'm so glad that we had it last year, because I'm sure whoever got it now is sick.
Yeah.
Because, they had anticipated a big year, and now, they all went home.
Yeah.
But that happened to us too, right? We just earned the account of Twitter. Again, serving their entire building. Next week, they all went home. And, but we've started expanding into Los Angeles. We're building out a roastery there. We're still figuring out the impact of COVID and how we're gonna proceed there. But we are expanding to Los Angeles. We've been planting seeds in Atlanta. Atlanta has opened up 2 arms with a big hug, and they've invited us, and so we've gotten a lot of love in Atlanta. And there's it's a big country and there's a lot of opportunities, but between here, LA, and Atlanta, that's really all I'm trying to focus on right now. But we've got investors and supporters in Chicago, in New York. And
somebody said, "What's up with San Jose?"
Well, actually, interesting enough, we had there's a young sister who's opening a cafe in San Jose. So they're gonna serve Red Bay coffee, and we'll help train them and help provide them with the technical and training assistance. So I need to check back in with them and see where this COVID mess has landed with them. But but San Jose is a big city, and they love coffee. So we're trying to get to San Jose.
Somebody said, bring it to South Africa.
First of all, I love South Africa, and I was in South Africa. So I talked about my previous careers, and so I was a photojournalist, and that was my first thing. And I actually, so South Africa played a very pivotal role in my life, because in 1994, they in my campus at SF State, they were recruiting students to be witnesses to the election in South Africa. So I wanted to go and do that, and then I decided to do it. But then I thought, me standing around with a blue vest, and I for sure wanted to go, but I didn't want to go that way. So I went as a photojournalist, and so I was there for 3 months during the election in 1994 when Nelson Mandela was elected.
Wow.
I was at the inauguration in Pretoria. I covered the whole hip hop scene. I mean, because it was more than just the election. But anyway, that's the whole story. But man, I fell in love a couple of times. I covered the whole hip hop scene, the music scene in South Africa. People just have no idea still. I mean, I'm talking about gospel, rhythm and blues, deep hip hop, jazz all day long. Of course, our native, indigenous musics, and the music, the talent in South Africa is bottomless. Bottomless. So inspiring. So yeah, that changed me forever.
Nice.
Shout out South Africa, Joburg, Yeoville, all that.
So Keba, in 2017, Blue Bottle, the kind of one of the catalysts for this whole third coffee culture wave, Nestle bought a majority stake of the company for over $400 million. And I know that sometimes, when you have investors, you can't get around being acquired by a larger company if they want to acquire you. But I'm just wondering, would you be open to being acquired by a multinational corporation, or, you know, what's your vision for growth? Like, how do you imagine? Because,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, look, the reality is, and I'm just saying what's in the streets. A lot of people are
Yeah.
like, Blue Bottle, when it was small and boutique, it was popping, but as soon as they got bought, they just lost the magic, you know. And obviously people have their critiques around, you know,
Sure.
being acquired by a multinational corporation, but then there's also a lot that you lose when you start to automate and make it, you know, such large quantities. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are around, you know, how you can continue to
Yeah.
grow and maintain
So
your integrity and all
when I
that.
heard that news, yeah, yeah. So when I heard that news, I called James Freeman and I congratulated him and I thanked him because, you know, that was actually very good for Red Bay Coffee in a couple different ways. One, they lost a lot of fans, and a lot of them migrated to Red Bay Coffee, right? Two, by a Oakland-based, Oakland-founded. You know, some people learned about them in New York and thought they're from New York. Some people learned about them in San Francisco, thought they're from, but they were founded in Oakland.
Yep.
So,
I
you know,
remember when they'd be
so
at the farmers market, the Grand Lake Farmers
that's right.
Market.
That's right. So,
Yeah.
so we're for sure claiming Blue Bottle, one of the most successful specialty coffee companies on the planet. And for them to drive such a big deal, that automatically gave a valuation, that automatically gave some validation to any other specialty coffee company founded in Oakland. And this is the time that we're raising capital to expand and rate and grow and scale up Red Bay Coffee. So I would say that a couple of things were important to me. You know, one, and this is how we would keep our soul. And as we're raising capital, I was very concerned about, you know, the sense of control, the sense of staying true to our mission, and our mission being bringing beautiful coffee to the people, making specialty coffee more accessible to Black and brown people as customers, as employees and professionals, and developing and maintaining fair relationships at the farm and producer level. So so I had to find investors who shared those values. I had to find investors who believed in the values that we believed in, and we also became a B Corp, a benefit corporation, which means that we cannot we don't have the fiduciary responsibility to only have a return of profit to our shareholders. Being a benefit corporation means that our fiduciary responsibility is to our stakeholders, and our stakeholders we define as our our investors, but also our employees, also our farmers, the environment, and our community.
Nice.
So that means we can make choices and decisions that are in the best interest of, say, the environment and our farmers, and we can't be sued. I mean, this is really crazy that you could think that if a company made a decision that was in the best interest of the environment and the farmers, that they could actually be sued if it took some of the profits away. So I was trying to avoid that. So we created a B Corp, and then I did, you know, created some other arrangements with inside the company on the board in terms of, you know, in terms of just the investors that I got. They gave me the level of control to make these kind of decisions that I found fit. But you do raise, you know, an interesting and a delicate point, which is as companies grow, you know, there's always some level of magic that is lost. right? That mom and pop boutique, they had one location, then they opened up a second location. The second location was never as good as the first one, or you know, the club that you went to every whatever night, and as soon as they expanded to a bigger location, it just kind of lost some. So, you know, but I'm not in this to just serve good coffee to a few people. I think that, you know, what we're doing is, if it's good for Oakland, if it's good for the Fruit Belt, then it should be good for Atlanta. And I think also, you know, I think a lot of people like to see Black businesses just stay small and quaint and cute, um, and uh, and and that's not us. I'm trying to scale up, and I'm trying to compete with Blue Bottle. I'm trying to compete with Starbucks. I don't doesn't mean I want more. I don't need more stores than Starbucks, but we have to be out there in the world for people to engage with us. And if we're having these fair practices and elevating professionals, you know, you know, that's just something that we have to deal with, and that's a road that I have to navigate in terms of scaling a company, staying true to our values, keeping our quality on point, and I'll just do the best I can, and I'll keep it real. And I'm also prepared for the haters that come, you know, because as soon as you start to grow, you know, and you're not cute, then you become a target. And, and that's something that comes with the territory. And if you can't grow, you know, and I'm saying this, but I'm not there yet. I don't have a tough skin, right? So, you know, I'm an artist. I'm a sensitive person, you know. So, you know, but I'll do the best I can, and I'm still trying to make decisions that are best for me, my family, my community, and our workers and our farm partners, and that's how we'll continue.
Okay, we're back on, but let me see if we can get Keba back on here. Sorry, guys, we got booted off for whatever reason. Well, we're still waiting for Keba. I definitely want to acknowledge our partner, our financial supporter, Kaiser, who's been underwriting the chef in residency for the past 5 years. Thank you, Kaiser. Let's see if Keba's back. Okay, well, Keba isn't back. Apologies. I don't know if it's time's out after an hour. For whatever reason, we got kicked off. Let me check one more time. If not, we can just circle back. Okay. So anyway, apologies. We can't get Keba back on. Thank you all for for chiming in. This will be archived for the next 24 hours. You can also look at Facebook and YouTube for recording of our conversation. And hope you guys have a great weekend. Check back next Friday. And we appreciate your support. MoAD has been doing some amazing programming throughout the shelter in place. So please